All right, first customer for the day. Customer complains of no communication on this carrier rooftop unit, 15 ton, I believe. They said they had tried a few things and checked out the unit themselves. They don't do a whole lot of work on the units themselves besides the basics, but they said they had checked for power in the unit, no power. They reset the breaker downstairs in the main electrical panel, and then come up here and reset the breaker or the disconnect on the unit itself. Here's the main disconnect for this unit. They reset that and still didn't help, so that's why they called us. So I'm gonna dive into this and see what's going on. First, undo these door locks. Get this unit open. Let's see if we can tell anything right off the bat. Okay, right off the bat, these carrier units have these main controllers where you're able to put it in test mode and see different temperature set points as well as the temperatures it's running at, and be able to test all the individual parts, compressors, condenser fans, blower fans, and whatnot. But anywho, back to the simplistic part of it anyway, as far as seeing right off the bat what's going or not going on. And no power on the board, not doing anything whatsoever. This breaker is also on, not tripped. No power on this communication board. So what we'll do is pull this cover off. Just got a few bolts. Sometimes they're not all in, depends how many people have had their hands in these things. But take these bolts off, get this main cover off, exposes all the electrical components back there, and get some readings on it. We'll start from there. All right, so I removed those few bolts. I think there ended up being 4 bolts to get that cover off. Oh, and just so you know, lockout tagout's always your friend, especially when you're troubleshooting circuits and whatnot. But I got that cover off, and immediately before I locked it out, obviously using my meter, not getting my hand in harm's way, took some voltage readings. Off your main points, you want to hit them first. Obviously your main disconnect, make sure it's getting full power, which for this case it was 480 volt phase to phase, on load side and line side, getting 480 volt phase to phase and 280 to ground, each phase to ground, both on that disconnect and this circuit breaker. So I knew I had power, the right amount of power coming in, as far as I haven't dropped a leg or whatnot. There's no main fuses coming into this as far as a fuse disconnect, just circuit breakers. So then with an insulated screwdriver, I just quickly cycled the contactors. That word just ran out of my head. Cycled the contactors for the compressors and the blower fan, make sure they turned on, and obviously it didn't trip anything. It didn't see any burn marks or anything, so I knew I was good. Still didn't have power, obviously, to the main controller, so I read voltage on the transformers. And well, first I read voltage on this main board right here, the communication board. Didn't have 24 volts coming in. So behind here are all the transformers, and didn't have 24 volts coming out of them either, or any of them, all 3. So then I went down to these fuses, these low 30 amp fuse block, and checked them one by one. And these 3 are bad. This one's good. These 3 are bad. So then went over to the wiring diagram, started with fuse 2. I found fuse 2 on the wiring diagram, and did some tracing, and see that fuse 2 is for the common side of all 3 transformers. So that's why I'm not getting any 24 volt power, control power, to any of this as far as transformers, anything. So that's that issue. What caused it, we will find out. The other two fuses, fuse 3 and fuse 4, are both for the power exhaust. So possibly an issue with the power exhaust fans, grounded out. Fuse 2, as well as feeding the transformers, it also feeds the common side for all the condenser fans. So could be an issue with one solo condenser fan causing that fuse to pop, which then killed everything. So what I'm gonna have to do is go through the process of elimination of seeing if there's an issue with one of the fans. I already took a screwdriver and stuck it up through the vents, or the shrouds, I guess. Made sure nothing was locked up. All the fans spin free, so we know it's nothing to do with that. So more than likely, I'm going to be popping some extra fuses. So I'm going to run down to my van, grab a handful of them, and go from there. Just got back from my van. Got a handful of fuses. We'll see what we can do. First things first, avoid all the goose poop. Gotta love those on these white roofs up here. Damn geese. All right, back at the unit. My goal is to toss the one fuse. Like I said, these two are for power exhaust. So we'll figure that out later. The reason I don't have any power to the controller or the whole unit as a whole is because of fuse number 2. So my goal is to slap this fuse in there, kick it on to disconnect, obviously unlock it, kick it on to disconnect, quickly get over here to the controller and put it in test mode before it has a chance to fire back up by being called from the thermostat. But if I can get it in test mode quickly, then I can test the individual fans. So I'll go through them. It shows there's only 3 contactors, 1, 2, 3, and it has 4 fans. So one of the contactors is paired up with 2 fans. I'm pretty sure it's contactor 2. Go by the wire diagram. It's contactor 2. So contactor 2 should pull in fan 2 and 3. So it should go 1, 2, 3, 4. Or I guess I'm pointing at them wrong. 1, 2, 3, 4. So hopefully I can do that. Like I say, get it in test mode as quickly as possible, and then test the fans and see if one of them pops the fuse. If one of them pops the fuse, I got plenty of spares, but at least gives me a starting point. We'll go from there. All right, so my plan worked out well. I was able to get power kicked back on, quickly get over to the controller. It was getting power, which is good. It was getting its 24 volt power. I quickly got it into test mode, which just requires hitting escape from the menu, cycling down once to service test, and hitting enter. Sometimes you have to enter in a password. From all I've seen, is if it does ask for a password, it's just 1111. And got it in test mode, cycled down to outdoor fans, and went to test fan number 1, and pop, blew the fuse. So what I'm gonna do now is kill power again, lock it back out. I'm gonna go back to this contactor for indoor fan 1. I'm gonna pull the control power off of the contactor for indoor fan 1 to not allow it to run. And then I'm gonna come back and try out or outdoor fan, my bad. Outdoor fan contactor 2 and contactor 3, which hopefully outdoor fan 2, 3, and 4 will all run, and we'll go from there. All right, so I unlanded one of the power wire for the coil, 24 volt, feeding the contactor, the coil and the contactor for outdoor fan or condenser fan number 1. And then rushed over here after I power back on, get to the controller, put it in test mode to test outdoor fan 2, well, contactor for outdoor fan contactor 2 anyway, which ended up powering fan 2 and 3 just as suspected. They cycled on. It didn't blow it right away. They cycled on. I came up over here quick enough to watch the fans, just to peek up here, and they were both running. These two were running, which makes these 2 and 3. And as soon as I popped up here, I saw a spark come from right about here or so, and then it popped the fuse, killed the fans, so killed 24-volt power again. I then unlanded the wires for that contactor, which is contactor 2. Like I said, unlanded 24-volt power for that, replaced the fuse again, and then come back over here, put it in test mode to test outdoor fan 3, which contactor for outdoor fan 3, which is technically outdoor fan 4. And this one right here is 4. It ran fine. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna shut it off, lock it out. I'm gonna pull off the top grill for this fan, unland the motor wire, unland the motor wire for these 2, and then go back and, well, I guess not these 2, because possibly that one runs. This is one where I saw the spark. Unland this one, which is 3, and then land this one, which is 1. So, and then go through, I'm gonna re-land the wires back on the contactor to make sure everything's good. So with this one unlanded at the motor, and this one unlanded at the motor, I will have basically fans 2 and 4. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll have fans 2 and 4, which are opposite corners, which is the next step of the test anyway. And then once I have those unwired, like I say, I'll land the wires back on the contactors and then test all the contactors and make sure everything's good to go from there. If everything's good to go, I will be replacing those 2 motors. Let's see. So I took out the bolts, screws for the grill covers, lifted them up enough to unhook motors 1 and 3. Got them unhooked. Came back down here, re-landed the wires for contactor, outdoor fan contactor 1 and outdoor fan contactor 2. Didn't need to replace the fuse because it was still good. And now I'm going to go ahead and power it back on and quickly get it into test mode. So she's on. Power's going to the communication board. So now power's to here. I will escape out, go down to service test, enter test mode, enter again, turn it on. Okay, now it's in test mode. Escape out, go down to fans, enter indoor fan, nope, outdoor fan. I'm gonna go outdoor fan 1, turn it on. It pulled in the fan, outdoor fan contactor 1. Obviously I unhooked the motor, so nothing's running. Escape out, go down to 2, turn it on as well. That contactor just pulled in, which should allow one of the fans to run. Fan number 2. Fan number 3 is spinning backwards because of the air that's being pulled out by fan number 1. Come back over here, escape out, go up to, or down to 3. On. That contactor pulled in and is running this fan. So I now have 2 fans running. Still running, not popping any fuses. Contactor pulled in, still power going to the board, power going to the communications. So that tells me I will be replacing fan number 1 and fan number 3 today. 2 new fans in, see what happens. Outdoor fan 1, on. Outdoor fan 2, on. Outdoor fan 3, on. All running good. Not popping that fuse either. I say we're good to go. Check.